Nancy Pelosi, badass. When Nancy Pelosi first took up the Speaker's gavel in January 2007, it was amid soaring talk of making history and breaking barriers. For our daughters and granddaughters, today we have broken the marble ceiling, she proclaimed at her swearing-in. Now the sky is the limit. Anything is possible. 16 years, 4 presidents, 2 impeachments, 1 pandemic and a failed insurrection later, Ms. Pelosi will soon hand over that gavel for good and step down from House leadership amid a darker, more divided political landscape than she likely imagined in those first heady days. The George W. Bush years weren't a high point for bipartisan comedy and public trust in government, but they were a far cry from the violence-obsessed, conspiracy-mongering nihilism of Trumpism. But Ms. Pelosi has never been one to let the haters get her down, and some of her most important acts of leadership have come at some of the nation's lowest moments. History, being reductive, will remember Ms. Pelosi as the first woman to rise to the exalted post of Speaker, just 2 steps away from the presidency. Those who have watched her work in the House for so many years will remember her as something arguably just as notable, a total badass. By that term, I don't mean that Ms. Pelosi is some swaggering, performative tough guy. Quite the opposite. In her 2 decades atop the House Democratic caucus, whether in the majority or the minority, she has been a strikingly effective leader in part because she doesn't much give a flip about her public image. What matters to her is getting stuff done, be it passing legislation, thwarting the opposition's agenda or protecting her members come election time. She is brutally pragmatic, too much so for some in her caucus, and has a shrewd sense of the political pressure points of allies and opponents alike. She doesn't hog the credit for her clever ideas, nor does she waste time publicly rationalizing or blaming others for her bad ones. No one outworks her, and aides and allies have happily cultivated the legend of her endless energy. Key points: doesn't need sleep. Runs on chocolate. Ms. Pelosi has frequently been underestimated. It is one of her competitive advantages. That whole grandmother in pearls thing led many to assume that she could be talked down to or outmaneuvered or intimidated. More than one Republican president and congressional leader has seen his best-laid plans shatter against her vaguely awkward, excessively bright smile. Ms. Pelosi has never been natural in front of the camera. Mr. Bush's second-term goal of remaking Social Security never had a prayer. Even President Donald Trump was clearly in awe of her and had no idea how to deal with her treating him like a petulant man-child. He still doesn't. The poor guy can't even come up with an insulting nickname for her that sticks. Ms. Pelosi has long been a favorite boogeyman for Republicans, her name invoked to raise gobs of campaign cash and whip the base into a fury. Few figures have generated so much conservative hysteria for as long as she. In recent years, this has become a more dangerous distinction as Mr. Trump has radicalized and mobilized his party's fringier elements. Ms. Pelosi has not necessarily been a beloved leader. She plays favorites. She holds grudges. She does not suffer fools or mistakes with patient good humor. She is a demanding, micromanaging control freak who loosened her iron grip on her caucus only when threatened with internal revolt. Plenty of younger Democrats see her as too establishment, too compromised, too out of touch with the political crises of today. Some of her members have long been agitating for a leadership change. In recent years, several campaigned on the promise not to support her as leader. A smattering have tried to topple her. And then there's impeachment. It is no secret that Ms. Pelosi resisted impeaching Mr. Trump, especially the first time around, worrying about the political fallout. Even after bowing to her caucus and moving ahead, she insisted on keeping the investigation narrow. Both times, Republicans in the Senate refused to convict. And there will always be those who question whether, if she had allowed the process more time and space, things might have turned out differently. But this is the kind of second-guessing the Speaker has little use for. Ms. Pelosi is stepping back from leadership while her political stock is high within her party. Despite House Democrats losing the majority, pretty much everyone acknowledges that they dramatically overperformed this cycle, given the political fundamentals at play. And her personal brand has been burnished by her cool handling of the assault on her husband and a recently released video showing her poise during the January 6th insanity. With Congress under attack, she was ripping open a beef stick with her teeth. Ice cold. The modern House is not known for producing great statesmen or even effective leaders. Ms. Pelosi is an original, and we are unlikely to see another leader of her ilk anytime soon. She elbowed her way to the tippy top of the Congressional Boys Club, then set about distinguishing herself as the most formidable, most effective House leader since the middle of the last century. Love her or hate her, you have to acknowledge the fundamental badassery.